Hi, I'm Stacy Raske from stacyraske.com, and you're listening to the Social Media Talks podcast with Alan Hennessy from compassmedia.ie.
Welcome to Social Media Talks podcasts, brought to you by compassmedia.ie.
Hello and thank you for joining me. This is the Social Media Talks podcast, brought to you by compassmedia.ie, episode number 90. I'm your host, Alan Hennessy, and this is the podcast to help business owners who want to learn more about social media marketing. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/podcasts. You can also join our Facebook group by logging on to facebook.com/groups/social media talks. And we're looking forward to today's show. Today I'm going to be joined by Stacy Raske. And Stacy is a best-selling author, speaker, soulful success coach, strategist who helps high-performing women who have plateaued shift from intimidating to influential and authentic alpha women leaders, elevating their impact, income and legacy by leading and scaling with soul. She helps thousands of women ignite their soul and allows their light to shine by releasing their stories and doubts, slowing their success. And working with Tracy, they have embraced their badass and fully own their power, finally allowing the success that they truly would deserve. And today we're going to be talking to Stacy all about being authentic with your marketing. So without further ado, I think we will transition straight over to the interview with Stacy. Hi Stacy, how are you? Thanks for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast. It's a pleasure to have your company. How are you getting on?
Oh, I am fantastic. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to join you.
Brilliant stuff. And of course, today we're going to be talking all about being authentic with your marketing, and looking forward to this conversation because I think it's a very important part of marketing, and it's a part that we're going to dig a little bit deeper into, and I'm looking forward to it. But before we start, maybe you could give us a little bit of a brief background on yourself before we get stuck into our chosen topic today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, brief. That's always the key, right? Well, I am an Iraq War veteran, and I am an avid biker, motorcyclist version of biker, but more importantly, soulful success coach and authenticity expert. So I really love helping the entrepreneurs and leaders that I work with connect to their real authentic self in order to grow their businesses authentically as well.
Brilliant stuff. And I'm intrigued to find out more about this biker, by all these bikes as well. If you follow Stacy here online, you will actually see her. She's mad, and it's great to see. But also a vet as well, a veteran. Well, fantastic, and thank you for that as once again. But today I think we're going to be talking, as I said, about being authentic with your marketing. And I think it's so important when we think about how we, I suppose, project ourselves online, but also through all aspects of our marketing, our businesses, and I suppose as well as an individual. I think, so what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it really is amazing how much we learn throughout our lifetimes to wear these social masks. We wear these masks of who we think we should be in order to avoid rejection and to ensure, people like us and to fit the roles that we're taught to play in our lives. And even getting into entrepreneurship, business ownership, leadership, there's so much of who we end up projecting of what we think that means, as opposed to really who am I, and really being clear on who that is in order to lead and succeed with soul instead of shoulds, or really looking at leading and running our businesses based solely on the numbers.
Mm.
Because I've learned in not only in my military career, but in my entrepreneurship as well, that that's the byproduct. The clients, the income, the numbers are the consequence of showing up in integrity, being authentic in my business, my messaging, my marketing, and really leading with soul and being of highest service.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, and I think it's something that people do forget, because they're all the time trying to, as you say, project this image of who they are, what they do, how they can help, and whatever. But a lot of people, and especially with, I suppose, the power now of social media and every other format as well, that people can very, very quickly see whether someone is authentic or whether they're, if they're being true to themselves, because there's nothing as bad. And I always say it is when you see someone online and they're all, oh, this is great and fantastic. And we all know that all of our lives are not like that day in, day out. But what we do is we try and put the best foot forward as what we are, I suppose, programmed to do. But I think it's about also understanding that everyone has a bad day, but everyone also has a great days. And if you're real and you're, true to people, I think they'll warm to you so much more.
Oh, that is absolutely true. That was the key shift in my business and my brand as well, was really owning my story, owning the parts of myself that I'd really kept locked away, such as my inner rebel, and really owning my alpha leadership qualities and bringing all of that to the forefront, bringing my biker lifestyle into my brand, like all the stuff that really made me me. And everything completely catapulted because now it was massively connecting. It's memorable, and it just really shifted how I was showing up in my business too, because it wasn't about curating. It was about connecting.
I love that. I love that. I really do. I love that whole idea of connecting, because I think that is important. And it's like as even when I speak to clients and when I'm on training or whatever it may be, people will always say, "Oh, Alan's always really personal, but he doesn't run through everything real quick that I can't understand it. He understands that I'm not as that I don't have as much of the skills that he has, but he makes it so easy for me to understand." So, and that's not me promoting me, it's me saying I purposely made a conscious effort to make it that way, because I looked at when I went to other training programs or whatever, and it was just run through, and they don't give people the time of day. And I say, but that's the most important part, because that's what makes you different than the other person.
And that is so true. It is. I mean, people come into my world on social media and I get complimented by them all the time that when they message me, that I actually respond and that it's me. And I'm like, hey, all right, so yay, what's going on? I'm genuinely wanting to connect. I'm strategic about the people that I invite, for example, into my free Facebook group. But when they come in, I friend request them. I send them a private message, not to sell them anything, but to genuinely get to know, hey, what's going on? I curate my content based on what your needs are. Let me get to know you a little bit. And it creates those loyal fans. I recently had a woman, and she's really excited to begin working with me with my coaching. But she's not quite there yet due to just some personal stuff going on. And obviously all the things we've got going on in the world right now, some pivoting happening. But she says, she's like, not only am I a disciple of Stacy, but I also
love it. I love that.
She's like, I'm a disciple. I mean, we had a phone conversation, just, a sales call. She's like, all right, you got me. I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm in. I'm like, okay. But to connect with someone on such a deep level who is absolutely a soul client. Like, she's so my ideal client. And to know that I'm connecting with her on that deep level. She read my book. She's like, oh my gosh, she's in my head. To be able to build this relationship with someone before I ever have an opportunity to talk to them really is authentic marketing.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to it. It is because, and the other side of that is they get to know you and they get to trust you. And, I know there's the cliche of the know, like, and trust scenario and stuff like that. And it is true. But I think you have to have that connection, because it's when that person rings you up, they know that they're not going to be, oh, here's another one of my clients. They know that you care about them and they care about you. So it's the perfect scenario, because what it is it also brings them to the forefront of your thoughts, but it also, when they're talking to others, that they are, referring you because they know how good you are and they can stand over it. And I think that's a huge part of, I suppose, life in itself, but also, I suppose, in the marketing aspect of that you are always promoting yourself as being authentic, but you're not actually having to put on something. You're not having to put on this mask. You're actually just saying, this is me. This is how I work. And I want you to work with me. And this is how we can move it forward. And I think that is a beautiful piece of advice for anybody.
Thank you. Well, and the key there, though, is knowing who you are. And that's the missing piece for so many people, is they're not giving themselves the time and the space to really deeply, truly get to know themselves, because we wear the biggest mask with ourselves.
Yeah.
We avoid getting real and honest and with ourselves, and really avoid feeling our feelings, acknowledging our thoughts, all the stuff that's going on internally, especially for the people that come into my world, because I work with the high achievers, the high performers, the type A personalities, and definitely the alpha energy, especially the women. But even when I do the business corporate consulting and the keynote speaking and the leadership mentoring and things, just really bringing in that energy and saying, hey, own these parts of yourself, like the inner rebel, and allow that to help drive wise, authentic leadership.
Yeah.
And, we're so busy all the time just hustling, or what I call like the toxic hustle, because it's actually an unhealthy coping mechanism to just avoid getting real with ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is to stand back from it and look at yourself and be, I suppose, be comfortable in your own skin. Because if you're comfortable in your own skin, it's like everything. It ripples out. It will create a ripple effect. Whereas if you are not, and you're constantly trying to put on some sort of face, you're never going to get it. It reminds me of a story of it was a couple of years ago I heard it, and it's there was a guy it's sort of a hypothetical story, but he talks about where this particular guy wasn't too happy with the way he looked. So what he done was he used to wear a clown's mask because no one ever smiled at him. So what he used to do was wear this clown mask every day. And every day people would smile at him, and he felt that gratitude, and he was delighted. But it got to a stage where he couldn't take that mask off. And hence, that was his biggest problem, because he couldn't be true to himself. So the idea there was that, you don't have to wear a mask, because you are who you are, not who everyone else is.
Absolutely. And that there's so much value in you being you. You are the expert of you, your life, your experience, your training, your mistakes, your lessons, your successes. Like, you've got this beautifully crafted personal brand, right? Because we've all had our unique and individual lives, and every one of us can use that for this beautiful personal brand that really connects to your audience and really connects to your ideal client, or what I call your soul client. But being willing to own your truth and be your true self is really scary. That was the piece that shifted for me, being willing to lean in and say, okay, I'm going to own my traumas. I'm going to own all of these different pieces of my story, the amazing successes that I've been taught not to celebrate, the traumas and challenges that I've been taught to hide and avoid, and just bring it all into this pool together to say, hey, this is all of who I am. And sharing that not from the place of, hey, look at me, I'm a special snowflake, but hey, look at me, listen to this story that I'm sharing from a genuine, authentic place, not to tell you my story because it's about me, but I'm sharing my story to resonate with you because I'm really telling your story. And that's who I'm calling in, are the people who've had these similar stories, similar experiences that really resonate. And it builds that relationship before I ever have an opportunity to talk to them, because they know the real me, because it's not the curated version. I talk about all the work that I've done in my life, in my business, and there's still mindset challenges. There's still new levels of growth. There's new levels of learning. I share the days that I'm like, yep, completely fell apart. But here's the lesson I learned.
Yeah. I think that's very important. Just as you say, here's the lesson I learned, because as I always say that is for every negative there is a positive. There has to be a positive out of it, no matter what you do or how you do it. So it's being able to express that, but also able to let people know that, yeah, I didn't have the greatest of days, or I wasn't always this successful. I've had that part. And it's when you, especially if you're on stage, and I know you do a lot of keynotes as well, and I'm like that. And I think that's very important, because I always will do it the same when I'm doing a keynote or any type of presentation is I will always start and say, here is what happened to me. And this is how I fix it, or this is how I change it, or this is how I adapted, or I pivoted, whatever the word you want to use. Because then people resonate with you and they say, oh, well, if he can do it or she can do it, there's no reason why I can't do it. And I think that's a very important part. And the mindfulness part is always one of the big things with me, because I've studied NLP and stuff like that. So I understand, but I always find that you have to have that level in your own head before you can have it anywhere else. Because if you understand that, then you're starting to, you'll be automatically, you'll say, right, okay, I know how to cope with this, or I know how to deal with this, or I know where I need to go with this, because you've stood back from it and you've talked about it in your own head before you do. They always say that we create 4 movies, and the 4 movies are, one is in your head, the second one is in your mouth, the third one is in the other person's mouth, and the fourth one is in their brain. So you see where the whole scenario of it works, and I think it's key important here, what we're talking about.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Well, and it's interesting too, because it goes back to, it all starts with ourselves. In order to be a successful leader or successful entrepreneur, it starts with being a leader of yourself. And if you're not willing to lean in and handle the tough stuff with yourself, i.e. the negative emotions, the sabotage, the unhealthy habits or patterns that we may tend to engage in. So like for me, one of my go-tos is what I call prep purgatory, where we're always in this
I
place
love all these little sayings.
Yeah, toxic hustle, prep purgatory. But the prep purgatory, where we're in that place of just busyness, of always getting ready. And it's let me work on my website, or let me pull together my sales funnel. Let me work on creating copy and doing all this stuff, but we're still hiding. We're staying busy and you can end up burned out, but we're never doing the things to really, generate revenue or actually show up. And this is a big one that I see a lot in the people that I work with and my clients, and just kind of leadership in general, where people are showing up but still hiding and they don't even realize it. And so this can happen a lot with social media, where we show up and we're delivering tons of content, but the real you is hiding behind it. And so a lot of why you're not connecting with your audience is because you're showing up, but you're still hiding.
Yeah.
So that can look like just delivering information, or it can be being over salesy. It can be complicating things. Or another one where I see is delivering really great content, but never actually telling people what to do, not having a clear call to action, never actually sharing anything about your program or your offering or your service. You're just giving away tons of content. And so again, it's just kind of lots of showing up, but hiding.
Yeah, and I think that is a point, like, where you would see a lot of people on social media where they say, oh, I can help you with this, and this is what we do, and this is how, and they say, well, I'm not here to sell, I'm just here to help you. And you're going, well, really, why are you online? Because at the end of the day, if you want to get people into your, let's call it a sales funnel, if you want to get them into your sales funnel, well, why are you doing this video to show them how to do, A, B, or C? When, the whole objective is that you really do want people to start working with you. You do want them to trust you, but you have to, I think you always have to be, I suppose, not over salesy, but letting people know that, look, I have a lot more to offer. This is just a taste of it. And I'm happy to work with you or even talk to you. And I always find it's the language that people use as well is another key important part. So, like, I would never get on social media and say, oh no, you have to work with me. I'd say, if you would like to, talk about this in a little bit more detail, please get in contact with me. Because you're not actually telling people to do this. You're saying, if you want to. So you put the onus, I suppose, back on them to actually come to you, which is the proper and the polite thing to do as much as anything. In real life, we do it. So why don't we do it online?
Well, and that's actually also utilizing the energetics of it. Whether we're thinking about it like the balance of masculine and feminine energy. So when you get into marketing, right, we all the law of attraction people love to talk about that, but they're not necessarily using it. They're actually utilizing social media and they're marketing in a way where they're projecting more of a masculine energy, chasing clients, rather than, like, as you mentioned, offering the invitation, which is actually utilizing feminine energy, which is the attraction energy, so that you're calling in the people you want to work with and allowing them to do the work, activating them to lean in to you and to your content and to your brand and to your message. So they're coming to you. And so it's important to utilize the energetics. But in order to utilize the energetics, that's always going to go back to that identity piece. How well do you know yourself? How well balanced are you internally in order to then bring that stuff to your business, to your brand, to your messaging, to your marketing?
And I have to admit, I did that only, I think it was early last year. I actually sat down and I went back and I just said, right, I'm going to look at what I've done over the last number of years. And I'd say, I think I took 2 years. And I says, okay, well, what did you do? And I actually analysed it and looked at it and said, okay, there's something that you constantly were doing. You were constantly doing that. And then I went, okay, well, why? And asking that question and actually just sitting back from it and looking at it and taking an objective. And then I says, right, well, I'm going to change that, the way I do that. And from the minute I started to do that, I seen a massive, massive increase in every aspect of business, every aspect of my life, because I think it was a real case of taking stock and started standing back and saying, right, well, this is working okay, but it's not working to where I want it to be. So why isn't it working? And like that, it was going back and saying, okay, there's a certain amount of things that I was doing that in a sense, I was looking and going, I wouldn't buy that because of that reason. So I think you have to do that. You have to constantly keep looking and seeing how can you better yourself, but also better what you're doing as well.
Oh, absolutely. Evaluation is key, right? Like plan, do, review. And then that gives you that opportunity to tweak and adjust. So, but it's really interesting how often we are the biggest blockers to our own success, either by, staying in that space of hiding or doing all this work to bring in clients, where we're in that chasing mode or sales mode or hustle mode, or just not ever inviting people, like all the different things. And so it's these internal walls and blocks that we have to actually allowing ourselves to be successful and have what we truly desire. And that authenticity piece is the shift, but from being intimidating, and this is definitely in the space of like leadership, performance, or even just sales in general, where we come across in that intimidating energy, and shifting from intimidating to influential. It's different to influence people to be better, influence people to work with you, influence people to, and influence, I also equate to inspire.
Yeah.
We inspire people to say, wow, that's my person, I'm working with them, or to inspire them from the stage and say, hey, these, like you said, if I can do this, you can do this.
Yeah.
Big difference in that energy.
And I think that's very, very true. That inspiring is a huge part of that. Because what it does is it also helps. It helps everyone because, like when you hear, like I have often been talking to people and I'd say, oh, you really are an influencer in that field. And they'll go, oh, no, I'm not an influencer. I just do what I do. And I'm going, no, but you do. Because I think everyone in their own right is an influencer because we influence people every day. We influence our family, our friends, our business colleagues, whatever it is. We do that every day. We also inspire them. So like if you put up a live video and you are talking all about what we're talking about here today, or if we were to put this out as a live video and people say, wow, isn't Stacy great? Isn't Alan great the way he just, that's inspiring other people to do as what we do. And I don't mean to replicate it, but I mean as in to look at how they can do this. And I think that's very important. I think that's very important when it comes to marketing as much as anything else, because we see it every day. And I would follow certain people that I have my go-to people that I say, wow, I just think their content is brilliant. But I don't think that I can't do as good as them. It was someone said to, Ted Rubin said to me very early on when I started these podcasts, I was saying that, I was a bit nervous speaking to him because it was at the early stages and I knew Ted. But I actually said to him, I said, I'm a bit nervous. And he says, remember, Alan, it's me and you just having a chat. That's all it is. So it's two people having a chat. It's just it's just something that we're doing differently, that you can do this, but never feel that you're not that person. And I go, okay. And I've always remembered that because I just think it's so important. And it was one piece of advice that have taken for every podcast interview I've done. Now, like that, I've interviewed a huge amount of people, but we all are just the same, but they do inspire you. And I think that's a very important part of what we have to think about as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's interesting because when we go into that kind of trigger mode of feeling the discomfort, generally that comes from the control issue, right? Where we're focusing on things that are actually outside of our control. And that's kind of the difference, the shift between the intimidating and the influential, because those of us, when we come across intimidating, there's this energy of trying to control things outside of ourselves that we don't actually have control over, right? If we're telling other people what to do, because there's a difference between influencing your family or influencing your team than intimidating them by trying to control them in some way. And that is always going to go back to that authenticity piece. If we are not fully connected and to the truth of who we are internally, then we can feel a bit out of control inside. And so the flip side to that, and I speak from personal experience as a recovering control freak and perfectionist and overachiever, and is that I was always trying to control all of these things outside of me. I don't know how my marriage has survived nearly 2 decades. I mean, the last 5 years have been good as I've gone through my recovery from my rock bottom moment to where I'm at now over the last 5 years is amazing. But before that, it's just crazy. But it was the same thing in business, and just all of the achievement and the success and the performance. Everything was always outside of myself. And so I was always chasing the next thing for validation, for something. And when we're in that cycle, that's not the best type of leadership. And so it comes across as inauthentic on social media in our marketing. And so it's that opportunity to step back and say, oh, okay, am I an achiever? Do I have some control issues? In terms of that personal evaluation, only from a place of curiosity, not judgment, but to just say, okay, if we can see some of these habits and attributes playing out, now the gift in that is you can start to dig in and identify, oh, okay, this is why my social media marketing is not working. Because if I take the step back and look, oh, okay, here's the internal things that are going on. And through all of these layers of my business, my messaging, my marketing, it's just being amplified. And so this is why I'm not connecting with the clients, and I'm not getting the income goals. I'm not getting the numbers. I'm not getting the conversion.
Yeah, because I think that's a lot of people worry about is they worry about the numbers. They worry about, the people that are following. They worry about the income. And look, we all do. But I think if you focus on that, you will always be focusing on that, and you're never going to get anywhere. Whereas if you focus on what it is that you're trying to achieve, instead of worrying about, oh, where is my next paycheck going to come from? Or where is my next, why haven't I got 10,000 followers when this person has 50,000? Like, if you keep thinking that way, I think at the end of the day is that will follow, because people will see the benefit in you. They'll see the goodness in you. They'll see what you do. And I'm not just talking about individuals. I'm talking about businesses, because businesses don't do this. And this is a big, big thing where they just say, okay, we're the business and that's what we do. And we don't have any faces in this business. We're just, if you want to talk to us, you ring this number, instead of saying, why not talk to Alan? Why not talk to Stacy? Why not, then you start to connect with that business and you start to do. And I only had a conversation with, I think it was someone else on the podcast a couple of weeks back, where I was saying that I actually rang a particular company and I got a number. We're a big international company for help with computers. Let's just say it that way. I'm not going to mention any names, but like that. And I got this guy on the phone. He says, look, if you have any problems, here's my direct number. And I went, okay. Same thing happened about 3 weeks after, and I ran back straight on. Yeah, no problem, Alan, I know. But it was that connection that made me go, well, will promote this company because of that. And I think that's so important, that businesses stop becoming faceless. They need to be more social. They need to be more connected to their customers. And I think that, as you say, is if you can understand, if the person or whoever's dealing with this can understand who they are and understand the benefits and the influence and the inspiration that they bring to the party, it has to work. It's just gold. It's solid gold.
It truly is. It is about relationships. Everyone wants relationships and truly that connection, and understanding that even all the elements behind the scenes are all relationships. So in order for my business and my brand to connect with my soul client, my ideal client, and build that relationship, I have to have a good relationship with myself. I have to have a good relationship with my business. Again, that's another relationship. And it's so easy, again, for those of us who feel challenged with relationships, and that was my story, was a lot of hiding hurt, trauma, shame, guilt, pain. So I'm massively walled off. And so nurturing those relationships was really something that I wasn't even aware of in my business. And so all these things I was doing early on in the first few years were all shoulds, like, well, I should have a sales funnel and I should be doing content like this and I should be doing stuff. But that's the disconnect and why it was inauthentic and why it was not connecting with my ideal clients, why I was not able to charge high-end prices at the beginning. And again, a lot of what I was saying with the showing up and still hiding, I was hiding behind the numbers. And I see a lot of solopreneurs and a variety of businesses, what you just said, just only tracking the numbers. But in that same sense, being afraid to really call out who I am for, like who is this client that I want to call in, being really specific in who I'm for, but also being willing to talk about who you are not for. Right? Because that's going to go back to the mask and the fear of rejection and, people pleasing and all of those things that we have this tendency to default to, even in our business and in our social media marketing. We don't even realize it, that we're so afraid of saying who I'm not for, out of scarcity or all of the different limiting beliefs that we have, that, it just, we're not. And, I don't want to just say niching, but just being clear in our messaging, who I am for and who I'm not for, as opposed to just chasing numbers.
Yeah. And I think that's key. That is key, because I remember even when I started out in the business, when we started the business first, and I had a number of clients, I said, this is great, and we were doing everything. And then suddenly one or two of them dropped off, and I'm going, okay, what am I doing wrong? And I was devastated. And when I say I was devastated, I said, I lost the client. But it's over time that you go, look, this is the way business works. It is the way, this happens. You're not going to have, unless you're very extremely lucky, where you have clients for 50 years, but you don't, But I think at the same token, it's about not beating yourself up because, that client has moved on. It's saying that, okay, it only happened a couple of months back. One of our clients, and we says, okay, right, that's fair enough, we can't do anything. Now, we did go through the procedures of, seeing what else we could do or why, and they just actually says, look, we're actually selling the business and we're moving on. And I went, okay. And he says, there's nothing that you has done. And we says, oh, great, okay, so no problem. So it's about understanding that as well, because there is then parts of business where people will move on or they will see some opportunities. So you have to remember that. And that's where I would be very real in saying that. But it's also as well, when we look at, say, the types of social media marketing, and I've done huge amount of research on this, where we're talking about, how people react online, how they actually engage with people online, how they build them relationships. And I'm nearly all of the courses I will always say to people is are you connecting with the people that you're reaching out to? And they go, oh yeah, well I have. So say for instance, if they're on LinkedIn, they say, oh yeah, well I have 2,500 connections or whatever it may be. And I say, have you actually even talked to any of them in the last 6 months? Oh no, they're just my connections. And I said, but that's not a connection, that's an associate. So the idea being is that if they put up something online, make sure to comment on it, even if it's a thanks or great article or whatever it is. But don't do this sticking your thumb up and putting that thumbs up emoji, because it's the height of rudeness, because you wouldn't do it as a face to face. I wouldn't sit here and just every time you said something great, I just take a thumb up, because you'd be soon annoyed with it. So I'm saying is just answer that question or say thank you or whatever it may be. And I will always do that, especially with my social, and I know you do it a lot as well, is actually making that connection and saying thank you or making that comment, because that's building them relationships and making them a lot stronger than what others would do.
Yeah, absolutely. And being very genuine with it. That frustrates me so much when people, they friend request you, or, they connection request you, or whatever the case is based on the platform. And immediately then they message you trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Could you at least have engaged in a little bit of foreplay to nurture the relationship, and at least, make it seem like you were trying to get to know me before pushing your product or service down my throat?
But it's like, as I always say, like, it's if I go to a networking meeting, I'm not going to go to a networking meeting with a contract in my hand. So when I get introduced to you, oh, here, sign this contract. You're not going to do it. You're going to go away. Leave me alone. They're going to walk away. So why do you do it online? Because you shouldn't be doing it online. Because you need, as you say, to nurture that relationship. As, I like that word, foreplay. A little bit. And it is, but it actually is.
It goes back to the relationship.
Yeah,
it goes back.
Yeah, it is. And I think that they are key points that, that I think people need to take into consideration is that you don't just go in. It's the same, like, for years, everyone would go on social media and they'd say, oh, buy this, buy that, instead. Whereas now, people and customers and followers, or whatever they may be, they're not putting up with that anymore. They don't want to know that. They want to know, how are you going to add value to their life? And that's the key to it, is how do you add value to their life? Not to anyone else's, to their life. So you have to come up with that marketing strategy and that understanding of, how can I do this? How can I help that person?
Well, and before you even get into the strategy, you've got to intimately know the value piece. What is the value? And then I just I have a pop-up group, this Power Pivot pop-up group right now, helping these amazing women entrepreneurs, pivot slightly in the current situation. And as we go through pivoting the offer, pivoting who their soul client is, and really digging deeper. And this is a key element, is we go into the strategy without doing the inner work and the planning and the research first. We just think, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And so many people build their businesses backwards. They build their marketing strategies backwards. Everything's off of what they think will sell, what they think will make money, rather than getting to know themselves very intimately on, hey, what's aligned for me? What truly lights me up? And I speak from experience, because my first 3 years in business, I was a health coach. And I love coaching. I knew it was my calling. It was a perfect fit, but doing it as a health coach was not the right fit for me. It was just a should, because it was based on, I lost 100 pounds. So it's a really dramatic before and after photo. So guess what? It's an easy sell.
Yeah.
So all the wrong reasons to go into business as an easy sell, because guess what? Once I got into it, it was not an easy sell, because it was not in alignment with the truth of who I am. It was not me being truly authentic. Now, granted, I learned a lot of lessons, and it helped pave the way to me finding what truly lights me up. So I still had to go in, because, right, we think we need to be in alignment and have clarity in order to take action. But obviously action leads to clarity and alignment. So we've got to be willing to do both.
Yeah.
And so at least I jumped into the pool, the ocean of entrepreneurship to learn those lessons. And that was the next evolution of my business, and was, what's this next level of getting to know myself, my truth and authenticity, and bringing that into my business. And then taking that time to really get intimately aware of who that client is that I want to talk to. What are their real pain points and problems? How is that affecting their life, their business, their mindset? What have they done before that hasn't worked? What do they truly want in their life, their business, their mindset, their health, whatever industry you serve? What do they really want? And then what's the benefit beyond that desire? Like, who will that allow them to be, do, and have on the other side of it? Like, yeah, of course, if you work with business owners, yeah, they want more money. But what is beyond that?
Yeah.
We've got to dig into those layers, and then understanding how if you're a service provider or your products or whatever your offer is, how is that the bridge from where they are to where they want to go, and really being clear on how that happens, why you're different, why you're able to get them there when all these other things have not, and allowing that to drive your messaging and your marketing. Because that's when they know, hey, you're in their head. That's when they lean in, because it's not about the numbers. If you know that one person that you want to talk to intimately, and they see that you get them, they're the ones that lean in. But you've got to be willing to do that stuff before you start thinking about your strategy. Because if you run Facebook ads and you don't know who you're talking to, it's not going to land. So you've got to do that prep work, that planning work, to know who it is that you want to talk to before you ever lean into your social media marketing strategy.
And I think that's very true. And I think, that like that, it will attract others that are in the same thing. And it's like that happens. It does happen. I've seen it happen before, where people, once you know what it is, and the people that you want to attract, and stop messing with the people that are just on the sidelines, because the ones on the sidelines, they're always going to be on the sidelines. They're always going to be, oh, can you help you, whatever. Whereas the other ones will actually lean in, and they will talk to you, and you will then start to see an attraction of others coming through that door as well, because they know where you are. And I think I think that's the key to it here as well.
Well, and as those people lean in, like I mentioned earlier, being willing to identify who you are not for. I mean, the more clarity that I get, as you shared the story of losing the client, people that I worked with, a few years ago that I definitely would not work with now, just because of my own personal evolution. And as my business has evolved, I've gotten more and more clear on who I am, what I'm about, what I do, who I serve, how I serve them, and just becoming more and more and more targeted in who that is as I grow and evolve. And so some of my clients along the way, I have one right now that she's kind of graduating out, and we were in alignment for a while. We worked together for about a year, and now we're at the place that it's just naturally time to part ways. Because I am rapidly going in one direction, and she's at a place now where she's pivoting in her life and her business, and that's okay. Being willing to have those people just fall away. I mean, the more clear I am in my messaging, the more I get unsubscribes on my email list.
Yeah.
But I'm also getting new subscribes, so it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that is it, because I think you will see that, because people move around, and it's all about as well. It's your energy as well that happens, because it sucks the energy out of you if you're just constantly trying to help the people that are not aligned with you. Because once you let them go, you just have so much more energy, but you've also so much more focus, because you don't have to be worrying what's happening here on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, when you're actually just focusing straight down the middle and you're saying, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I think that is the key here to being authentic. And I think that's really, like I could sit here and talk about this all day, because I find it fascinating, and I do enjoy talking about this, because I think it's so important as much as anything else, especially for business owners and for individuals, and for just more so for people who are even starting out in business, or developing a business, and just in their own personal life. I think it's so important.
It truly is. And really wanting to work with people who are empowered They are empowering themselves to say, hey, I want to work with you. I want to invest in your products or services. Versus, as you said, right, like the people who are not, that just drain you, that you can end up kind of resenting that time or really just not enjoying that. And it drains you. But the part of that as well is as being that empowered leader, because as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're a leader regardless of being a business of just you or a team of 100 or 1,000. I mean, you're still a leader and showing up empowered because you're very clear on who you are. And that's the difference between being real and raw and authentic and vulnerability. I feel like when we get into so many of us talking about being authentic online, we automatically default to its vulnerability. And a lot of times we associate vulnerability as being in a state of disempowerment or being weak or somehow
or failing.
It just has this, some sort of a negative association. So I really remove vulnerability from even being involved in this authenticity piece. I just say we're being real, we're being raw, we're being authentic. Because even for myself, as someone who hid so much of my real self my entire life, the idea of vulnerability was somehow weakness. And, it triggered the fear of rejection, which the fear of rejection is real because we've experienced it. It's not coming out of nowhere. But to really look at it, say, I want to work with people who are empowered, or I want to work with clients that are a mirror reflection of me. So if I'm showing up in the energy of empowerment and respect and balance and self-management, even if I'm helping people learn how to do those things, I want people who are ready to put in the work. They want to be better. They want their business to be better, whatever it is, like that. We are leading by example.
Brilliant stuff. As I said, I could sit here, talk about this all day, way over time, but you know what? It was so worth it. It was so worth it. Before we go and before we finish up, I always ask my guests one simple question, and it's not related to the podcast, and it's more of a personal, to find out more about the person on the actual podcast. And the question I pose to you, Stacy, is if you had the chance to invite someone to dinner, whether it be past or present, who would it be and why?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question. It would be the stunning Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr, not only to be absolutely gorgeous and voted the most beautiful woman in the world and be such a beauty icon and a talent with her acting and just her grace. But at the same time, she was so brilliant as an inventor. I mean, her role in the shape of modern airplane wings in spread spectrum, as that goes into cellular phone communications, Wi-Fi. I mean, she's literally like the mother of our modern communication, and most people don't even know who she is. I mean, she would be on movie sets and then have little inventions workspaces in her trailer. So to be such a great balance of creativity and art and beauty and brains and logic and mathematics and engineering. And she wasn't even trained in terms of education. She was just truly beautiful and brilliant.
Brilliant. I actually didn't know half of that about her. I always thought she was just an actress. So yes, that's very interesting. I'll have to go and do a little bit more research and have a look at that in more detail. Amazing. How can people reach out to you, Stacy, if they want to get in contact with you?
The best place to find me is at stacyraske.com, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram as well at stacy.raske. Raske.
Brilliant stuff. It has been an absolute pleasure sitting and talking with you today, and I will we'll be back. You will have to be back up on the podcast very soon, because I think we have so much more to talk about. So Stacy, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, and continued success, and we shall talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your podcast. It has been such an honor to join you.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast, and hopefully you learned some great information and also insights from our guests today. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/podcasts. And all of our podcasts are available on all the usual podcast providers. And we will be delighted if you would leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as we're always thrilled to receive your feedback on any of the programs. You can also subscribe to the podcast there so you never miss an episode as well. And if you'd like the show notes for this episode or for any of the previous episodes, please log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please do get in contact with us. All you have to do is email us at smtalks@compassmedia.ie. And if you'd like to find out more about the services that Compass Media provide, from social media marketing and training to podcast services, please visit our website for more details. You can also reach out and connect with me across all of the social networks, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I will personally answer every one of your requests. That's about all for today. I've been Alan Hennessy from Compass Media for the Social Media Talks podcast, and we look forward to talking to you next week. And as I always say, be social. So until next week at the same time, bye-bye.
Social Media Talks podcast is a production from compassmedia.ie.
The Social Media Talks podcast is sponsored by ContentCal. For more information, visit their website at contentcal.io. We would also like to remind you the Social Media Talks podcast is proudly supported by charityradio.ie.